guys, welcome to House Party. I have videoed all of this already and went to look back on it and realised that I done it as a time lapse. So we'll maybe put that in the output just to give you a laugh. But yeah, welcome to House Party. I hope you are keeping so good. I'm sure by now you've been tagged in 5k challenges or challenges of other kinds. I hope that has brought you some fun and some happiness. And I hope that you are keeping good whatever you have been up to. We are looking through Jesus Is. We're now on chapter 4. And if you haven't caught any of these videos so far, I just really encourage you to go back, catch the ones that you've missed before listening to this one, and feel free to jump back on this again once you're caught up. Yeah, so we're in chapter 4, and in chapter 4, Judah really invites us to live as God intended, full of joy and happiness and fun. He says that true happiness cannot be found in anything unless it is first found in God, and that when joy is found in God, then we can find happiness in everything else. As I was reflecting on this, we'll get into that a wee bit later, but as I was reflecting on this chapter, I had this thought that one issue with our generation is that we have become impatient. And so rather than waiting for true happiness, we sell ourselves short and seek for immediate pleasures in life. Now that's been true of people for years, but as we think of what social media has done, as we think of how quickly things are delivered to us, as we think of the now culture that we live in, we often sell ourselves short for the immediate pleasures in life. How many times will we fill ourselves with sugars and snacks and chocolate and sweets throughout the day, only to lose our appetite for dinner and spoil a good meal, knowing that we'll be hungry shortly after? Just like this, we have become satisfied too easily with pleasure and miss out in ultimate happiness. Judah gives examples of how the Bible is littered with ideas of joy and happiness and fun. It was God who filled the calendar with songs and dance and festivals and feasts. One of the nicest things that we can do right now during lockdown is to take a walk with our family as the sun rises or as it sets. Just think, this is exactly the kind of activity God did with Adam and Eve in the garden. A nice walk in the sun is just one way of thinking of the joy and fun and happiness that God wants to bring. We can find joy in so many activities: making coffee, playing football, CrossFit, reading, running, playing video games, fashion, art, and the list goes on. There's only one rule: keep God in it. All of this will only bring you passing pleasure if done by yourself or even with others. Do it with God, invite Jesus along with you, and it will bring you lasting joy. Judah spoke on how Jesus was introduced to the world. Imagine a boxer entering an arena. His best accomplishments will be mentioned, his most fitting achievements. You wouldn't hear as Conor McGregor enters the octagon. In the blue corner we have Conor McGregor, Celebrity MasterChef Champion 2020. It wouldn't make any sense. So when Jesus is introduced to the world, how he is introduced helps set the tone as to why he came and what he came to do. So how was he introduced? As good news of great joy for all people. In other words, Jesus came to bring the gospel, and as you live that out, it will bring you great joy, and it will always be offered to you. Judah says that the gospel is good news for everyone. It is not just for people who are already good, for those who are self-disciplined enough to have all their ducks in a row. It's good news for people who can't even find their ducks, whose life is a mess. They can come to Jesus and find instant acceptance. They belong long before they believe and long before they behave. One of the last things I found from the book that was helpful, and I've actually put it in a wee sticky note for myself, is this quote: "True happiness comes from holiness." And we're going to just move into questions, but one of the first things that I want you to do is just to pause this video and to think of what that means. True happiness comes from holiness. Okay, so the second question that I have for you is, what are you more concerned with? Pleasure or happiness? Okay, so number 3, we've seen how Jesus was introduced into the world and how the reason that he came to earth was part of that title, Good News of Great Joy for All People. So I want you to imagine that you are being introduced in the same way. What do you think would be mentioned about yourself? What are your gifts and your talents and what you're good at? So part of the privilege of the good news is that it is given freely to us. On the other hand, we then have a responsibility to give it away freely as well. And I want you to think of how well are you taking that good news to yourself? How well are you claiming that for yourself? And then on the other side, how well are you giving that away freely to your friends and to your family? And so that's, guys, just our last question. Okay guys, so thank you so much for tuning in for chapter 4 of Jesus Is. I hope that this week that you really find joy and happiness and fun in Jesus. I hope that you're able to invite him into all that you're doing this week, into the big and into the small, whether that's playing your favourite sport or doing your least favourite housework. I just pray that you bring him into that with you. And I just really pray that God is with us until we're with each other again. Until then, guys,